Marcus, we need to talk about your patent application. The voice on the phone belonged to someone from legal, and my stomach dropped. I'd been working at TechFlow Industries for 3 years, designing circuit boards for medical devices. 2 months ago, I'd invented something that could change everything, a microsensor that reduced equipment costs by 40%. I'd submitted my patent paperwork through my manager, Derek Paulson, like company protocol required. There's a problem, the legal representative continued. The application was filed under Derek Paulson's name as the primary inventor. Your name appears nowhere on the documents. I stood frozen in my apartment, phone pressed against my ear. That's impossible. I created that sensor. I have all my research notes, my prototypes, everything. We know, she said quietly. That's why I'm calling you first. My name is Marcus Chun. Wait, scratch that. My name is Marcus Bennett, and I'm 31 years old. I grew up in a small town in Ohio where my dad ran a repair shop. I learned to take apart radios before I learned algebra. My mom worked as a school librarian, and she taught me that documentation matters. Keep records, she always said. Write everything down. That advice saved my life. I got my engineering degree from a state university, graduated with honors, and landed at TechFlow right after. The company made medical monitoring equipment, heart rate monitors, blood pressure cuffs, diagnostic tools. I started on the assembly floor, then moved to design, then to innovation. For 3 years, I kept my head down and did good work. I never caused problems. I never made waves, until Derek Paulson stole my invention. Derek had been my manager for 18 months. He was 47, tall, with graying hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He wore expensive suits and talked constantly about his accomplishments. In meetings, he'd take credit for team ideas without acknowledging who actually came up with them. He'd rewrite reports to emphasize his contributions. I'd watched him do this to others, but I never thought he'd do it to me. Not like this. Not outright theft. The microsensor project started as a side idea. I'd been troubleshooting a diagnostic machine that kept failing because the internal sensors were too bulky and expensive. One night, working late in the lab, I had a breakthrough. What if we redesigned the sensor architecture completely? Made it smaller, more efficient, cheaper to manufacture? I spent 3 months developing the prototype in my free time. I used the company lab after hours with proper authorization. I documented everything in a project notebook, sketches, calculations, failed attempts, successful iterations. Every page was dated and signed. My mom's voice echoed in my head, documentation matters. I ran simulations, built physical models, tested them against existing technology. The results were incredible. My sensor performed better than anything currently on the market and cost 60% less to produce. This wasn't just an improvement. This was revolutionary. When I had a working prototype, I scheduled a meeting with Derek. Company policy required all patent applications to go through your direct supervisor. I'd follow the rules exactly. I trusted the system. That was my first mistake. The meeting happened on a Tuesday morning in March. I brought my prototype, my notebook, and my preliminary patent application. Derek's office was corner suite with windows overlooking the parking lot. He had diplomas on the wall, awards, photographs of himself shaking hands with executives. "What V you got for me, Marcus?" he asked, barely looking up from his computer. I explained the sensor, showed him the prototype, walked through the cost savings. His expression changed as I talked. His eyes sharpened. He leaned forward, suddenly interested. "This is impressive work," he said. "Really impressive. You said 60% cost reduction. At least, maybe more with optimized manufacturing." He picked up the prototype, turning it over in his hands. "And you developed this entirely on your own?" "Yes, sir. All my documentation is here." Derek flipped through my notebook, his expression unreadable. "This could be big for the company," he said. "Patent-worthy, definitely. You did good work here, Marcus." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you. I worked really hard on it." "I can see that." He closed the notebook. "Leave everything with me. I'll review it and submit it to legal with my recommendation. Patent applications require manager approval, so I'll need to add some contextual information about how this fits into our departmental goals." "Of course. Whatever you need. Give me 2 weeks to put together a comprehensive submission." We want to present this properly. I left his office feeling proud, validated. I'd created something meaningful, and my manager recognized it. I'd followed proper channels. Everything was going exactly as it should. 2 weeks passed, then 4, then 6. Every time I asked Derek about the patent application, he had an excuse. Legal was backlogged. They needed additional documentation. The approval process was slower than expected. These things take time, he'd say. Be patient. So I was patient. I went back to my regular work, designing standard circuit boards for existing products. But I kept thinking about my sensor, wondering when I'd hear something official. Then, 2 months after I'd given Derek my materials, I received a company-wide email. It announced a major innovation in sensor technology developed by Derek Paulson, Senior Engineering Manager. The email praised his creativity and technical expertise. It mentioned that patent applications were being filed. My name appeared nowhere in the announcement. I read it 3 times, my hand shaking. I walked straight to Derek's office. He was on the phone, but I waited outside until he finished. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Guilt. Satisfaction. I couldn't tell. Marcus, what can I do for you? The email, I said. About the sensor patent. That's my invention. He leaned back in his chair. Marcus, let's be realistic. You did some preliminary work, yes. But I refined the concept significantly. I added critical design elements. I positioned it within our product line strategy. Patent law recognizes the person who brings an invention to completion, not just the person who has an initial idea. I brought it to completion. I built a working prototype. You build a rough prototype. I developed it into a marketable product. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. That's not true. You stole my work. Derek's expression hardened. Careful, Marcus. Those are serious accusations. You're a junior engineer. I'm a senior manager with 17 years at this company. Who do you think they'll believe? I have documentation. My notebook, my test results, everything. Documentation that shows you worked on an interesting project. But the patent application tells a different story. It shows my contributions, my refinements, my expertise bringing your rough work up to professional standards. He stood up, walked to his door, and opened it. A clear dismissal. If you're smart, you'll let this go. Keep doing good work, and there'll be other opportunities. Push this, and you'll only hurt your own career. I left his office feeling sick. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation, hearing his threats. Who do you think they'll believe? The next morning, I called TechFlow's legal department. I asked to speak with someone about patent applications. The receptionist transferred me 3 times before I reached Patricia Whitman, an assistant counsel. I need to report a problem with a patent application, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The application filed under Derek Paulson's name. He's claiming an invention that I actually created. There was a pause. That's a serious allegation. Do you have evidence? Yes. Complete documentation from the initial concept through working prototype. Dated, signed, witnessed. Send everything to me. I'll review it. I spent the next 2 days compiling my evidence. My original notebook with dated entries. Email timestamps from when I'd requested lab access. Test results with my signature. Photographs of my prototype with metadata showing when they were taken. I sent everything to Patricia with a detailed timeline. Then I waited. Days passed with no response. I started to think Derek was right. Who would they believe? A junior engineer or a senior manager? I kept working, kept my head down. But I noticed Derek watching me sometimes, a calculating look in his eyes. Then, 3 weeks after I'd contacted legal, my phone rang. Marcus Bennett, this is Patricia Whitman from legal. We need to talk about your patent application. My heart pounded. Okay, there's a problem. The application was filed under Derek Paulson's name as the primary inventor. Your name appears nowhere on the documents. I know. That's what I reported. We've reviewed your evidence. Your documentation is extremely thorough. But I need to ask, did anyone witness your work on this project? I thought back to those late nights in the lab. Most times I'd worked alone, but not always. Yes, Troy Hammond from Quality Control. He was running tests in the adjacent lab several times when I was working. He saw my prototypes. We talked about the project. Can you get a statement from him? I'll try. That afternoon, I found Troy in the testing facility. He was 42, methodical, someone who'd been at TechFlow longer than Derek. I explained the situation carefully. Troy's expression darkened. Derek's claiming he invented your sensor? That's garbage. I saw you working on that thing for months. Derek never set foot in that lab during development. Would you be willing to give a statement to legal? Absolutely. Derek's pulled this kind of thing before, taking credit for other people's work. But stealing a patent? That's a new low even for him. Troy provided a detailed statement to Patricia. 2 other engineers came forward with similar stories about Derek taking credit for their ideas in the past. Nothing as serious as patent theft, but a pattern of behavior. Patricia called me a week later. Marcus, we have enough evidence to investigate this formally. But I need to warn you, this will get ugly. Derek has powerful friends in the company. He'll fight back hard. I don't care, I said. He stole my invention. There's something else you should know. Derek's patent application is being fast-tracked. If it gets approved before our investigation concludes, it becomes much harder to challenge. Patent law favors the first filer. What can I do? We're going to file an immediate challenge with the patent office. But you should also file your own application. Independently. That creates a competing claim. I contacted a patent attorney that night. Her name was Angela Foster, and she'd handled intellectual property cases for 20 years. I explained everything. She reviewed my documentation and let out a low whistle. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of invention theft I've seen. Your documentation is impeccable. Your manager made a critical mistake. What mistake? He assumed you wouldn't have records. Most engineers don't document this thoroughly. But you have dated notebooks, witnessed prototypes, timestamped digital files. You can prove exactly when you invented this and who was present. So I can win. In court? Almost certainly. But patent disputes take years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most people can't afford that fight. That's what he's counting on. What's my alternative? We file your application immediately. We file a formal challenge to his application. And we prepare for TechFlow's internal investigation. Angela filed my patent application the next day. We included all my documentation, Troy's statement, everything. Then we filed a formal interference declaration with the patent office, claiming that Derek's application was fraudulent. That's when things escalated. 2 days later, Derek was called into a meeting with TechFlow's executive team and legal department. I wasn't present, but Troy heard about it from his supervisor. Derek apparently came out looking pale and shaken. The following morning, I was called into a meeting with Patricia and 2 other attorneys. Marcus, we need to show you something, Patricia said, opening a folder. Inside were documents from Derek's patent application. But these weren't the same documents I had given him. These documents had been altered. My sketches were redrawn. My calculations were reformatted. My written descriptions were rewritten in Derek's style. He changed everything, I said, staring at the papers. Not everything, Patricia said. He kept the core technical concepts because those are what make the patent valuable. But he tried to disguise the origins by changing the presentation. Can you prove these came from my original work? Yes. We've done forensic document analysis. We can trace every technical element back to your original notebooks. Plus, Derek made crucial mistakes. She pulled out another document. Look at the dates. Derek's application claims he began this project in January. But your lab access logs show you were working on it in November and December. Your prototypes are photographed and dated from that period. Derek's timeline is physically impossible. So he lied about when he invented it. He lied about everything. And we can prove it. The investigation moved quickly after that. TechFlow suspended Derek pending the outcome. He hired his own attorneys and claimed that he'd been the driving force behind the sensor development, that I'd merely executed his vision. His lawyers argued that as a manager, his conceptual guidance qualified him as a co-inventor. But his story kept changing. First he'd refined my rough work. Then he guided my development. Then he'd had the original idea, and I'd just built what he described. Each version contradicted the previous one. Meanwhile, more engineers came forward with stories about Derek. One had created an improved manufacturing process that Derek presented as his own in a management meeting. Another had designed a testing protocol that appeared in Derek's quarterly report without attribution. The pattern was clear. Derek had built his career by stealing other people's work. 3 months into the investigation, Derek resigned. He claimed it was to pursue other opportunities, but everyone knew the truth. His resignation didn't stop the patent proceedings, though. His application was still filed, still moving through the approval process. My attorney filed motion after motion, presenting evidence of fraud, demanding the application be withdrawn. Finally, 6 months after Derek stole my papers, the Patent Office ruled. They rejected Derek's application based on evidence of fraudulent filing. They accepted my application as the legitimate invention claim. I owe my censor. The relief was overwhelming. But the battle wasn't over. Derek sued me personally for defamation and interference with his professional reputation. He claimed I'd orchestrated a campaign to destroy his career. My attorney wasn't worried. He has no case. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. And all you did was report theft to your employer. The lawsuit dragged on for another 8 months. Derek's attorneys deposed me, Troy, Patricia, and half a dozen other TechFlow employees. They tried to paint me as a junior engineer who'd gotten lucky, and then refused to acknowledge his manager's contributions. But every piece of evidence supported my story. My dated notebooks, my lab access records, my prototypes, Troy's eyewitness testimony, the forensic analysis of Derek's altered documents, his own contradictory statements about his role. In the end, Derek's case fell apart. His attorneys withdrew the lawsuit and negotiated a settlement where both sides agreed not to pursue further legal action. Derek was finished. He couldn't get hired anywhere in the medical device industry. Word had spread about the patent theft, and no company wanted someone with that kind of ethical violation on their record. TechFlow offered me a promotion. They wanted to make things right, to show they valued innovation and integrity. They promoted me to senior design engineer with a significant raise. They also revised their patent policies to provide more protection for individual inventors. Every patent application now required documentation from the inventor, not just manager approval. They created an independent review board to hear disputes. They implemented protections against retaliation for employees who reported misconduct. My sensor went into production 8 months after the patent was approved. It was installed in TechFlow's new line of diagnostic equipment, exactly as I'd envisioned. The cost savings were even better than predicted, 63% reduction in manufacturing costs. The company's market share increased. Revenue jumped. My sensor was featured in medical journals and industry publications. And this time, my name was on everything. I think about my mom's advice often. Documentation matters. Write everything down. If I hadn't kept those notebooks, hadn't dated every entry, hadn't photographed every prototype, Derek would have won. He would have stolen my invention, and I'd have had no way to prove it was mine. The experience changed me. I used to think that doing good work was enough, that the system would recognize and reward merit. I was naive. The system only works when you protect yourself within it. When you document, verify, and stand up for what's yours. I also learned that speaking up is terrifying but necessary. Derek threatened my career, implied I'd be blacklisted, suggested I'd regret challenging him. Every part of me wanted to stay quiet and avoid conflict. But staying quiet would have meant accepting theft. It would have meant teaching Derek that he could keep stealing from people. Troy became one of my closest friends. He'd risked nothing by giving his statement, but he'd done it because it was right. That mattered. We still work together, and he still reminds me of the night he walked into the lab and found me testing prototypes. "You were so focused," he says. "Didn't even notice me standing there for 5 minutes. I knew then you were on to something special." Patricia from legal also became an ally. She explained later why she called me that first day. The application Derek submitted raised red flags immediately. His technical writing style didn't match his previous submissions. The concepts were too advanced for someone who hadn't published research in that area. "When I saw your report, everything clicked. You believed me right away." I believed the evidence. That's what matters in legal work. Not personalities or office politics. Evidence. My patent has generated millions in licensing revenue for TechFlow. The company shares a percentage of that revenue with me as the inventor. It's enough money to change my life. Enough to pay off my student loans, buy a house, start saving seriously for the future. But the money isn't what matters most. What matters is that my name is on the patent. When medical professionals use equipment with my sensor, they're using something I created. I solved a real problem. I made healthcare more affordable and accessible. That's worth more than any dollar amount. Derek, meanwhile, disappeared from the industry. I heard he moved to a different state, took a job in an unrelated field. I don't know if he learned anything from what happened. I hope he did, but I suspect he just blames me for his own choices. Last month, I spoke at a conference for young engineers. The organizers asked me to talk about innovation and intellectual property protection. I told them my story, all of it. The invention, the theft, the investigation, the legal battle. I showed them my original notebooks with dated entries and signatures. I explained how documentation saved me. Your ideas are valuable, I told them. Protect them. Write everything down. Date it. Get witnesses when possible. Follow proper channels, but don't be naive about human nature. Not everyone will respect your work. After the talk, a young woman approached me. She was 24, fresh out of grad school, working at a tech startup. My supervisor has been taking credit for my code, she said. I didn't know what to do about it. Do you have documentation? Version control logs, commit timestamps, anything showing you wrote it? Yes, everything's in our repository with my name. Then you have power. Use it. 3 years have passed since Derek stole my patent papers. 3 years since that phone call from legal that changed everything. I'm now lead innovation engineer at TechFlow. I manage a small team of designers working on next-generation medical devices. I make sure every person on my team gets credit for their work. I document their contributions in reports and presentations. When they have ideas, I help them develop those ideas while making absolutely certain their names stay attached. Because I remember what it felt like to have my work stolen. I remember the helplessness, the fear, the rage. I remember Derek's smug expression when he told me who they believe. The best revenge wasn't winning the legal battle, though that mattered. The best revenge is succeeding on my own terms, building a career based on real accomplishment, and making sure no one on my team ever experiences what I experienced. Derek taught me what not to be. And in a strange way, I'm grateful for that lesson. Just not grateful to him. Please do well to follow me, because I have more to tell you. Revenge Hood is saying thank you.